The prairie stretched endless, a sea of golden grass swaying beneath the weight of the sun. Dust clouds rose with every passing wagon, and the cries of hungry children were swallowed by the wind. In the shadow of a collapsed shack at the edge of a forgotten trail, 3 children huddled together. The eldest, a girl of barely 12, pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders, holding her baby sister against her chest while her little brother clung to her arm. Their parents were gone, claimed by fever weeks ago and buried by strangers who never bothered to ask the children's names. The world had moved on. But the children had not. Her name, well, she had one once. But names carried weight, and weight carried trouble. When their parents died, neighbors whispered, "Those nameless orphans won't last long." The words stung worse than hunger. Since then, the girl had stopped telling anyone who they were. The boy was simply, little brother, the baby, sister. And she was no one. Just a shadow passing through dust. Day after day, they scavenged. Behind the general store, she picked through spoiled apples. Near the saloon, she filled a tin cup with leftover water poured onto the ground. Folks in town saw them but turned their eyes. Children without parents were nothing but trouble, mouths to feed that weren't their responsibility. They belonged to no one, and in a land where everyone fought for survival, belonging meant everything. It was near sundown when the rancher rode in. His horse, a broad-chested bay with a white blaze, slowed as he entered town. Daniel Hayes was known to some, avoided by others. A man in his mid-30s, tall, sunburned, with eyes the color of storm clouds. He worked his ranch alone after losing his wife in childbirth years ago, and the prairie folks called him the Quiet Hayes. He spoke little, fought less, and carried the weight of his solitude with the same steadiness he carried his rifle. That evening, as the sky bled red and the wind howled low, Hayes noticed the children. They were crouched in the dirt outside the mercantile, the girl staring at the road like she could will supper to appear. Something about her eyes, defiant yet desperate, pulled him off his horse. He tied the reins to the post and approached slowly. The boy backed up, fists clenched though he was far too small to fight. The girl raised her chin, as if daring him to take one step closer. The baby whimpered, and she hushed her quickly. Hayes knelt. He pulled a wrapped loaf of bread from his saddlebag and set it on the ground. "Ain't looking for trouble," he said, voice low. "Just thought you might be hungry." The boy's eyes widened, but the girl narrowed hers. "What do you want?" "Nothing," Hayes answered simply. The girl hesitated, then snatched the bread, broke it into 3 pieces, and gave it to her siblings before taking the smallest bite herself. Hayes watched her movements. Every one of them spoke of someone who had learned too young to protect others first. That struck him deep. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl froze, her lips parting but no sound coming. Finally, she whispered, "We don't have one. Not anymore." Hayes felt a heaviness in his chest. He thought of his empty ranch house, the quiet nights, the graves that marked his losses. He thought of legacy, of the land he had no heir to pass on to. And he thought of these children, alive but nameless, like ghosts drifting through a world too harsh for mercy. He looked her in the eye. "Then you'll take mine, Hayes. From this day, you're Hayes." The girl's eyes widened. She didn't believe him at first. Too many promises had been broken before. But when he lifted the baby gently into his arms, cradling her as though she were made of glass, something shifted. In her, for the first time since the fever took her parents, she let out a shaky breath that almost sounded like hope. They rode out of town together before nightfall. Hayes placed the boy in front of him on the saddle, the baby safe in his arms, and the girl walked beside them, refusing at first to climb onto the horse until Hayes insisted. "Family rides together," he said. The ranch rose from the prairie like a stubborn fortress of wood and sweat. A wide barn, corrals stretching out, cattle grazing in the distance. The children stared with wide eyes. They had never seen such space, such freedom. Hayes showed them the small rooms inside the house. A warm fire burned, stew simmered on the stove. The boy ate until he nearly fell asleep at the table. The baby cooed, belly full for the first time in weeks. And the girl, she stood by the fire, silent, as if afraid to believe any of it was real. "Sit, child," Hayes told her gently. "This is your home now." Slowly, she sat, and for the first time, she whispered her real name. Clara. Life on the ranch was not easy. Hayes made sure of that. At dawn, Clara's brother, Tommy, learned to gather eggs, haul water, and mend fences. Clara learned to milk cows, cook meals, and tend to the garden. Hayes taught her to ride a horse, patient even when she fell hard on the dirt. He showed Tommy how to rope a calf and mend a saddle. He kept the baby, Mary, close in a cradle near the fire, rocking her gently whenever chores pulled the older two away. The days were filled with labor, but it was labor with purpose. Their hands grew calloused, their backs sore, but their bellies were full and their hearts, for the first time, steady. Clara grew taller, stronger. She laughed, an unsteady laugh at first, like she had forgotten how. Tommy's fear hardened into determination. And little Mary grew plump, her giggles carrying across the prairie. But the world never stays gentle for long. One stormy evening, riders came. The kind of men who smelled trouble and carried it with them. Drifters, eyes hungry for land, cattle, or coin. They rode past the Hayes fence, sneering at the children working by the barn. One spat into the dirt. "Here you took in some strays, Hayes," he called out. "World's tough enough without feeding mouths that ain't yours." Hayes stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. "They're mine now." The drifter laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. "Blood don't lie, rancher. These brats ain't yours. World will chew 'em up and spit 'em out." Clara stood stiff, fists clenched, fury blazing in her young eyes. For the first time, she stepped forward. "We're Hayes," she shouted, voice shaking but strong. "And you best remember it." The men sneered, muttered among themselves, but Hayes's steady rifle aimed at their chests was enough to send them riding off into the storm. When the sound of hooves faded, Clara turned to Hayes. "Do you mean it, truly, that were yours?" Hayes laid a hand on her shoulder. "I don't give away words I don't mean, Clara Hayes." From that day on, no one doubted the children's place. The town slowly warmed to them. The preacher offered Clara a Bible with her new surname written in neat ink. The schoolmarm enrolled Tommy without question. And when Mary toddled through the mercantile, giggling and bright-eyed, folks bent down to greet her as Little Mary Hayes. Years rolled on. Clara grew into a young woman with fire in her spirit and strength in her stride. She rode horses as fearlessly as any cowboy, worked cattle with a steady hand, and kept the ranch books better than Hayes himself. Tommy became his right hand in the fields, tall and broad-shouldered, carrying the Hayes pride like armor. Mary grew with laughter in her heart, the shadows of hunger and abandonment nothing but faint echoes she would never remember. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the ranch glowed in its light, Clara stood on the porch beside Hayes. She looked out at the land, at her siblings, at the home they had built. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly, taking us in. Hayes shook his head, eyes on the horizon. "No, Clara, I thought I was giving you children a name. Truth is, you gave me a life." Her throat tightened, and she leaned against him, no longer a scared little girl but a woman carrying the Hayes name with pride. In the prairie winds, the ghosts of her past whispered, but she no longer feared them. She was Clara Hayes, daughter of the ranch, sister to Tommy and Mary, child of a man who had chosen love over blood. And nothing in the world could take that away.